Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week is part 2 of my chat with the queen of feeling fabulous, Rochele Lawson. Now, if you missed part 1 of our chat, be sure to go check that out because we talk about a great many things, including introducing who Rochele actually is and what she's sort of done with her life up to this point. Great background information and a really fun chat. In part 2, we continue the discussion about positivity and how important it is, as well as going into some other details, including Rochele's past books, as she's an accomplished author and has written several and won an award for them as well. We speak about how weirdness isn't a bad thing, it's better being a trendsetter than a trend follower. Following my Rochele actually knighted me. It doesn't really make a lot of sense if you hear it from me at the start, but inside the podcast it makes a bit of sense. It's a lot of fun. We also speak about some of the challenges Rochele faced being a successful woman, as well as lots of other fruitful topics, including religiosity, spirituality, that sort of thing. Now, before we get started, there'll be a quick promo by the Real Life Real Crime podcast, so any fans of true crime really need to check this out. Woody Overton does an absolutely stellar job, and it's quickly becoming a real staple of true crime, so, be sure to check that out. I'm sure anyone who hasn't already heard of it and enjoys true crime will love it. But that's just about it from me now, guys. I'll be back at the end after the chat with Rochele to talk about what's coming up in future episodes and a few other bits and pieces of detail. Be sure to check out where I guested on the Comics and Motion podcast, number 75, where we discussed the film Dread from 2012. Link to that's in the description, as well as a few other things. So, yeah, check that out. I appreciate each and every one of you listening and sharing on social media and all those lovely things. And I'll talk to all of you at the end.
I'm Woody Overton, host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. Join me each week to hear true and unscripted stories of the cases I actually worked during my career as a major crime investigator in South Louisiana. Go to realliferealcrime.com where you can listen to each week's episodes and find links to our social media. I appreciate y'all. Don't let me catch you down on Murder Bayou.
Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton.
I would be like, oh, dang, I said some really bad, not nice things, and then I didn't feel good. But of course, I was never going to admit that, but internally, I didn't feel good because I would say some really not nice things. And whether I meant them or not, the point of the matter was they were really not nice things. And so for me, it was so hard for me to flip it from going from automatically being negative and nasty with someone to being like, okay, I see you're having an issue today. I'm not going to let your issue or your perception of something, incorrect perception, affect me. So let me just step back before I respond, because if I don't step back, I'm going to respond. I'm going to, revert to that younger Rochele, right? But if I step back and take a few moments and get centered and grounded and take a couple of deep breaths, I'm able to respond in a more positive manner. It takes practice and it definitely takes, working that muscle, so to speak. But again, you just never know what you can say to someone and put a positive spin on it that could change that person's way of thinking or what they do next or how they move forward or whatever. And so I always try to keep that in mind because we already have so much negativity in the world, right?
I completely agree with you there. I mean, one of the things I've said in the past is just life is depressing enough as it is without me making someone else's life even worse. They've got enough stuff going on, either financial issues, family issues, whatever it could be. Everyone has got something and they don't need me to come into their life and make it worse, Right. I completely agree with you. And when I was younger, especially, I'd have this thing where now I try my best. If I'm ever wrong in any way, I will try and apologize as quickly as I can and as sincerely as I can. And I will open with open arms, whether it's wrong about something stupid and petty, like the band released a CD at this certain time, or if it's something quite big and important, And I remember when I was younger, it was I say blame, it was partially because of my dad. Like my dad essentially never apologized for anything. So one of the things with that, he was a brilliant man in many ways. And I loved him dearly, but he was a know-it-all, which is where I get a lot of it from. And he would never apologize. And it was just like, one thing that really clicked for me was when I was trying to apologize, I'd feel this really weird feeling, like this weight of like, and this voice saying, don't apologize, don't do it, just don't. And it's like, you kind of question why. And it's like, no, don't worry about why, just don't apologize, just don't. And once you get over that, as soon as you kind of really start to do that, it feels like this weight's been lifted. And then now when I'm wrong with people, if I can't apologize, it just bothers me that I can't for ages. And I remember the young me, that the transition of that was, it took a little while because there was that voice saying, no, you're not wrong. It's like, but I know I am. Like, can't I just please? And it was like, no, don't, ego in the way. And then as I get older, it's just like, no, it's as soon as you kind of get through it and push through it, God, when you start doing it, that weight is lifted so much more. And so many people are still holding on to that just being right for some reason. I just don't get it, you know?
I totally agree with you. I just laugh at you because you said something else, and it's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's just so, and we're just so like it. But you're right. It's so much more uplifting, so much more freeing to be in that positive space. And you know what? Here's the best part. The very best part for me is when it's a moment that my natural inclination is to be a dick. And I turn it around and surprise myself and do something or say something positive, or, then I walk away and I'm like, yeah, girl, you killed it, because, the other person's expecting me to be the dick, right? And here I come, and it's just like, and you fool them. It's like they're expecting for you to come at them like, blah, 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 girl, I know you didn't say that about me, or, whatever. And then you come and you're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I really just wanted to, whatever, say that your shoes are beautiful, or you're looking fabulous today, or, is that a new hairstyle, whatever, right? Whatever it may be. And you turn around and you walk away. It's like a Tiger Woods moment when when he just won the Masters. It's like, yes, because you were able to not be predictable for that person. And you made them feel something positive because they were wrong with regards to predicting that you would be negative and you were positive. And then you made yourself positive because you allowed the radiant light from within you, that positivity, to really kind of effervescence, right? So you walk away in this bubble of effervescence of positive energy. And it's just beautiful. It's just so magnetic, right? So
and it's great meeting other people who are like that as well, meeting people who, I've got a few friends who aren't quite as, let's say, positive as I am in certain ways, but I have other ones who are kind of on the same wavelength. And it's really nice when two people kind of first click on that sort of positivity, and you can kind of, it's a weird feeling because, once again, any skeptics listening, when we talk about sort of meditation and things, even though I would argue that's very much been scientifically proven to help, but not going down that road. With like energy and things, I'm not saying necessarily about the woo-woo necessarily side of things, but an undeniable thing is, even if an energy is a really easy way of saying it, but micro movements of your body, your mannerisms, the way you say things, this, that, and the other, people's brains pick up on signals before your conscious self can even realize them. Your subconscious is always doing that. And so when you meet someone, you can immediately kind of tell a lot of time when there's a bad vibe, when they're just like certain body language and the way they're saying things. And obviously the other way around is exactly the same. When you meet someone who's that full of life and energy, and you come into contact with them, and then you feel energized from it as well. And it's like a positive infection of like positive energy, and I think that's incredible. And leading on from that slightly, I do want to ask about some of your books and things, because you're a busybody, so there's so many things to ask about. But may I ask, what was your first book about, and why did you decide to write a book when you did?
Okay, so that's super cool. So my first book was purely by accident, and it was in 2009. I had got approached, and I don't even know how these people found me, but I had got approached to do a podcast. It was a 30-minute podcast. It's my start of my podcast career, right? It was a 30-minute podcast once a month. And they pretty much said, you can do whatever you want. And I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about or whatever. I just knew I wanted to talk about Ayurveda or holistic well-being. And so I did this podcast and I would interview these people. And about 6 months, after doing about 6 of them, the guys who I was doing the podcast on their link, whatever, approached me and said, hey, would you like to write a book? And I'm like, how do you do that? I mean, I knew how I was a good writer, from all my college English classes and all that, but like, I never really thought about it. And they said, well, we can take excerpts from your podcast and create a book and we'll do everything for you. And I was like, oh, okay. How much is this going to cost me? And they're like, we'll put it together and we'll do everything for you. And then we'll just see how it goes. And if it goes great, we just won't charge. They just came out finally. We just won't charge you. We're just playing around. I was kind of like their test subject. So they put it together. They took them and I was like, and I got it. And I was like, I don't like what's in it. So I rewrote everything in the book that they had sent. And I had my daughter at that time, I think she was either a senior in high school. No. She probably was like in the 10th grade. I had her read it for me and proofread it, and then we submitted it back. And they're like, oh, you completely changed. It wasn't completely changed, the information. It was just the way it was structured, right? And so it flowed more naturally. So that's how the first book came. They did the design cover. We had created an ebook. We have a hard book that's on Amazon. You can get it at Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. And that's how it kind of came about. And then I was like, oh, I kind of like that. So then another offer came to me and I was like, okay. And I played around with it. And then I cranked this book out, I think like in 2 or 3 months, and it became a bestseller. Now, the first book wasn't a bestseller, but it definitely opened up my awareness of I have this other skill, right? And I like to write. So then the second book became a bestseller. I was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. But it was like, okay, I have this bestseller, but, now what? So then another opportunity came, and this was a collaborative book with a lady, and it was for women. And that book, my part in that book was very well received. And then we did a series of, I guess back in the day, teleseminars from my part in the book, and she really liked me. And that book became an international bestseller. Ooh. And then the last book that I wrote was another, just one of these, they all come at me, these fluke opportunities, but they came, and this book is called Answering the Call. And that book became a bestseller. And that book actually got me inducted into the best-selling speaker and authors Hall of Fame.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I got this award. I have to show you because you can see it, but I know the listeners can't. But I got this beautiful, can you see this beautiful?
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Oh, yeah, a giant golden feather. That's, I assume it's a quill.
It's a quilly. Back in the day, the old,
you got a lot of awards over there. I saw just a glance scar. Just proud to pretend to be humble. Don't show the rest of the awards, just the book one.
But yeah, it was, and that's just kind of how it came about. And so, I have a book that I'm writing now that's about affirmations. And then I'm writing another book, which is the second part of that very first book that came from the podcast back in 2009. Oh, wow. The second part. Yeah. So I'm excited. And again, I don't really care if anybody buys them or not. You know what I mean? It's just kind of therapeutic for me. And, if I can get, if one person is helped from reading one of the books, I'm happy. Of course, more will be helped, but but you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not doing it to become some famous author like the lady who wrote 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, I would love that, but that's not why I'm doing it. No. I'm just doing it because it's like a hobby and a passion for me. And it's just a way for me to get what's in my big head out on paper and then share it with the world.
Yeah, well, that as well as your blog and your websites and your podcast, you're overflowing with great information and things. I bet you're one of those people as well, because I get this a little bit, is that when you say you try and write for 20 minutes a day, I bet that's actually curbing how much you want to write, because like you start writing, and I mean, I get it with the sound of my own voice, unfortunately, which a lot of people with this podcast will know, is you start kind of getting something and you go, I think I've got something here. And then you start going and going, and then you start writing, and then you're like, you get like pages and pages done. You're like, I could write forever. And then you look and it's like, oh, it's been several hours. I should probably take a break. But it's like, I haven't eaten in ages. And it's like that passion, that fire. And one of the things that I love the most about doing this podcast, everyone who does podcasts would love to be the next Joe Rogan or whomever, that would be a dream. But
Right.
one of the things that I like doing with this is I love talking to people. And one of my favorite things is another reason why I like prefer doing video chats generally with people is one of my favorite things in the whole world is speaking to someone about something they're passionate about and watching their eyes light up and watching them get excited and then be like, oh my God. And like when you talk to people, I mean, I don't go to very many parties anymore. But when I was certainly younger, I used to host quite a few parties and things. And I used to just go around.
Oh,
and
you're
speak
kidding.
To
You? I can't even imagine that.
No, someone whose hobbies they spend just going around meeting and talking to new people across the world. Why would you want to host parties? That's silly.
Yeah, right.
And so I'd love to do that. And I tell people, if I have people I'm very close to, you can invite who you want, but you're responsible for them. If they mess up my house, they're not invited again. And, I never had any of those issues because everyone I know is generally quite a good person and everyone was respectful. But I'd love to do is go around and just talk to people I acquainted with, but didn't know that well. But you talk to them and they're, oh, what do you do for a living? And it's normally that, oh, I do this, blah, blah, blah. Oh, what do you do in your free time? Oh, I kind of do this. Oh, I've got a band. Oh, you've got a band. And they're like, what? You're excited, but I'm excited too. And then some people don't even know how to take someone else's excitement about the thing they're happy about. And that's it's quite sad in a way because I want people to be excited about what they're excited about. It doesn't matter if you do stamp collecting or you're an artist or you're a podcaster or, any of these things. Everyone is so different and cool and weird and it's brilliant. And weirdness is something that should be, emphasized and brought on in all the right ways, as long as it's not hurting anyone. And I imagine that I imagine you're with your children, you're a lot like this. I can see that you're probably quite a nurturing individual and you're just like, yeah, be weird. Weird is good. As long as you're happy and not hurting anyone, weirdness is great by my means. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I used to tell my kids, it's all about being a trendsetter, not a trend follower. And so, I didn't know why I was saying that, but it's funny. They each went out to be a trendsetter instead of a trend follower. And when I asked them, like, where'd you guys learn how to do this stuff? Because my kids are very artistically talented. I don't have any artistic talent, at least in my mind. I can't draw.
Same.
I can't sing.
Same.
I can dance okay, but I'm not like a Janet Jackson or anybody. I can't get down like that, but I can get down if I need to, right? But my kids are very artistically talented. And so when I asked them, they're all grown and I'm like, where'd you learn this stuff from? And they're like, they always say, we learned it watching you. And I'm like, what? And they're like, we learned it watching you, Mom, because you always, if everybody was wearing white, you would wear red. Or if everybody was, had to have at that time Vans, you had on Nikes, or if everybody had on Nike Air Jordans, you were wearing Toms or, whatever, and they're just like, we just watched you. And then I think it also was because I was a female entrepreneur in a male dominated industry when I was very young. I always knew that instead of being considered someone's little secretary, because I looked like I was a kid, that's so-and-so's little secretary, or she must be somebody's secretary. I wanted people to know that, no, I'm the executive officer of my company, my corporation. And so I would, wear really nice suits to these events where these guys were in like their construction clothes. And I'm in these really nice suits because I wanted to be, one, stand out and be remembered, but two, be remembered in a positive manner and be remembered as a trendsetter. So how it became was I was the girl that owned the telecom company. And because it was a female owning something in a male, I was the only female. I just kind of stuck out and became this, like trendsetter, not intention by any means. It was just, I just like to walk a different beat. I like to be a little bit audacious and I want it to be memorable, especially if I'm selling a product or service. I don't want to be grouped in with all the other booksellers. I want people to say, the girl, Rochele, that had the purple dress on, that, talked with her hands and, let's get her book, right? Versus, So it's just,
you've got to own it, haven't you? That's it, and that's all it ever is, and that's what things I say to other people. I mean, I've got a friend of mine who I went to school with, and college with as well. I didn't see him for a couple of years, and then I did the podcast. I started rekindling some of my friendships with the people, and I spoke to him. And he's an author, and he writes fiction books, and he's had 2 out and things like that. And I was really interested by it, and I had him on. I wanted to talk to him about the books. He came on the show, and then I'm basically working on him starting his own podcast about him. Basically, the aim is to essentially read out like a chapter of his book per episode and then talk about his influences of it, why you want to do that, some behind the scenes, some additional stuff, kind of building this world, because a lot of his books all intertwine and stuff. He's got like 13 written or something, and he's just releasing one. I know he's incredibly talented, and he actually he always tells me how much he appreciates me supporting him and things like that. And then he wrote this big Facebook status a short while ago, and he mentioned me in it, me and a couple of other people I know, and he basically said just to me, I inspired him because he was kind of, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently he was kind of running out of juice a little bit of his book writing and things, and he was kind of losing a bit of thing. And then I came in and I was like, oh my God, you're an author. That's amazing. What's about your books? I want to hear about them. Oh, you should do this with your books. And apparently that inspired him so much, and now he's kind of reinvigorated his love for it. And that goes back to the whole positivity thing. But it's also like, I was just like, dude, you write books. Like, it doesn't matter if anyone reads them. It almost doesn't matter if they're good. You do something, and that's incredible.
Right.
Most people aren't authors. And the fact that you've even spent the time to do one is incredible. And it's just that thing of, it doesn't matter what you do. You just got to own it, just go for it. And that weirdness thing that you said about, wearing different colors and stuff. I mean, I would not say in any way, shape or form I'm a trendsetter. It's more, you get trendsetters, you get trend followers, and there's me over there somewhere doing something completely different. Like, not even trend setting or anything, but like my friends mock me because they say I've got no fashion sense because I just wear whatever with whatever. And I'm, if I go out to town, I'll have like this arm, I'll have bracelets down to like here. And I think I'm the only 25-year-old guy I think that I've probably ever met who wears bracelets. So I've got bracelets down this arm, I've got tattoos on this arm, and then I'm wearing like a baggy band t-shirt and then like cargo trousers that apparently no one my age has worn since like the 80s or 90s. And it's all these things of people just mocking me, and it's like, not in a horrible way, of course, but like all these things, and I was just always like, why does it matter? Why does anyone care? And it's funny hearing someone like yourself who's so successful and passionate about all these things, and you're just like, yeah, just why would you follow everyone else? And that's kind of what I'm like. Like, there's not. If loads of people are doing something cool, there's no problem to go over there and see what they're all looking at. But that doesn't mean that you have to, oh, they're doing something cool, therefore no one else can be doing something cool. It's like, well, okay, they're doing something cool, but I think I'd rather see something else and just go out and experience the world,
It's funny because you say you're not really a trendsetter, but you are. You're setting a trend, freedom to be who you are, wear what you want to be, and be okay with it and still have a really darn good time. So you actually are the person that is the one, everybody's in the box. You got the people that are the perfectionists. Then you got the people like me that just kind of want to be audacious and rememberable, right? And then you got you, the free for all, like whatever, I'm just free flowing, whatever. But even still, the people they may remember my red suit, amongst the sea of white dresses or whatever, but they're going to remember you when you stroll in with your bracelets and your tattoo on one sleeve, right? You probably remember you more than me because of your free flowingness. So even though you don't consider yourself a trendsetter, I'm bestowing upon you, like the queen, ding, you are now officially a freedom trendsetter with positive energy.
Well, thank you. From the Queen of Fabulous herself. Thank you very much. The Queen of Feeling Fabulous has now knighted me, guys. That's it. Podcast done. This was the top. I'm never going to get higher than this in the podcast. This is the peak. So it's only downhill from here, so I should stop. I will say that one thing that a lot of people remember about me, which is quite funny, is I don't know if you can see it very well. I might have to get a little bit closer to the mic. I actually have a blonde moustache.
Yeah.
And it's really weird because the rest of my facial hair isn't. It's just this and a little stupid soul patch. And
oh wow,
it's really weird.
Yeah.
And I get people come up to me and remember me because of see me in town. I hang out with them and have a chat with them because I'll talk to anyone. And people are like, "Do you bleach your mustache?" It's like, no, I don't. I would never. Like, why would I bleach? Exactly.
Because you got ginger like color hair, like Prince Harry, right?
Well, I'd like to think that, but
I mean, I'm just saying. Well, I just knighted you, so you've got to be like among the royals,
perfect,
right?
Yeah.
But but here I was looking at you, and I'm thinking, I'm like, I wonder why his mustache is. Because granted, now I'm old enough to be your mother, so my eyes aren't as sharp as they once were. But I was thinking, oh, why is his mustache gray?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, a funny story. My niece, because I've got three older brothers really. One of them's 17 years older than me. The other one's like 20 years older than me. Yeah, my dad was married before and then remarried to my mum, and so my brothers have always had quite a big age gap between me and things. So I've got nieces. One of my nieces is 20, and I mean I'm 25. My niece is 20, and one of my other nieces is like 13 now. But when my youngest niece was 8, I remember it was around the time I could first grow facial hair. I had a little goatee for ages that looked horrendous, but then I could finally actually grow proper facial hair. And with a goatee, I looked awful. I looked like a cross between like Seth Rogen and Jack Black, but not funny or entertaining. It was just this weird, slightly overweight dude with terrible facial hair that was like half grey. It's terrible. I look at pictures of myself now. It's really long hair, like shoulder length, and it's half curly.
Oh, that's too funny.
It was horrendous. But my niece walked up to me once, I remember, and she came up to me and she was like, why'd you dye your mustache blonde? And I was like, oh, I don't dye it. It's just kind of naturally his colour. And she squinted and got really close to me and went, ugh, and then walked away. And I was like, I got absolutely wrecked by an 8-year-old. She doesn't understand many things in the world, but she wears to mock my facial hair. And I get people who argue, not with me, but like always people around me. They're like, no, his facial hair's blonde. No, it's not. It's grey. And it's like, okay. Some people say it's almost like a mood thing, maybe. Maybe when I change my mood, it changes colour or something, changes tint.
It's like a milk mustache. Like when you drink a milk and you get that up here, the milk, it's like a milk mustache.
Yep.
So
the worst thing is bubble gum. If you get a mustache for bubble gum, you get that popped in there. That will... I remember in college I had to shave off my mustache once, and people, not having a mustache, just having a beard look. Is that no? I got bubble gum stuck on the mustache. I had to cut it all out. So fun times there.
Oh my!
I wanted to ask you. Funny enough, it came up slightly earlier. Is yourself being obviously a successful woman? I want to ask. Like, I mean, I know this sounds now. I felt like I'm having to almost justify, which I shouldn't have to even think about it. But like, there's plenty of women I know who are incredibly brilliant in this, that, and the other, and I couldn't imagine like looking at a woman as lesser than a man. I know so many people do, and it's crazy. And I want to say another quick anecdote as well, which is probably the sheltered life I live. The first time I ever heard about racism, for example, was I was watching That's So Raven, and there's an episode of That's So Raven, and where it was Raven doesn't get a job because the woman says she doesn't hire like black individuals. And I remember I was like 8 or something, and obviously sheltered life. I was like, wait. I didn't even know that was a thing. And as I've gotten older, I've always had many women that are friends and many women that are men. And I've had girlfriends in the past have issues with myself being friends with women because it's not quite the right thing to do. And I often have to remind myself not only of my own privilege and things, but also just like, I was born as a straight white male in the 90s. I mean, I've got it pretty easy for easier than relatively everyone. And so I wanted to ask with yourself being, a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. Sorry, I hear that meme everywhere. But like, did you get many people who like really treated you bad? Because obviously this was a few years ago now as well. Did you get many men who really looked down on you and stuff for being a successful woman and things like that?
No, here's the thing. I didn't get that. And, I kind of like to say I'm triracial. I'm multiracial. So, but of course the Black girl that's the dominant one, right? But I'm Sicilian and I have Irish in me as well.
Oh, wow.
So, what I got, I'll tell you one interesting story. So we started the telecom business with my husband. We have very large customers right off the bat and financial institutions. One of the customers has banks all over the United States. I'm not sure if they have any abroad, but definitely all over the United States, and they're headquartered in New York City or New York. And we were in, of course, Silicon Valley. What happened was, it was this big project they were rolling out in California, which required 832 branches of banks to be rewired. Okay, so it's a big project. So we're back there now. We kind of played this game where no one really knew me. I was like the face of the business. I did marketing. I was doing other stuff. But as far as interfacing with the customers on the job site, they really didn't know me. They knew of me. They knew my name. They knew if they got a call from me, it was not a good call because generally that meant they didn't pay their bill, right? But, or contract negotiations or anything like that. So we're back there. and I'm with my husband, and we're very professional. We're not all like dolled up and stuff. Very professional. It's all guys. And so they ask him, they're like, so, hey, Daryl, where's Rochele? When Rochele gets here, we'll start the meeting. But before that, they were thinking me as his secretary, and they'd be like, excuse me, sweet, or they just thought I was a secretary. Excuse me, sweetie, can you go get us some more coffee? We need some pens and papers. And I was looking at him like, okay. And I just go out to the receptionist and, hey, the guys in there need coffee, hey, and stuff was happening. So we're sitting in there, and they're like, as soon as Rochele gets in, and Daryl goes, well, Rochele's the girl you've been sending to get coffee and, the pads, the paper, and the pens. She doesn't work for you. She doesn't even work at this. And they're like, oh my God, we're so sorry. We thought you were just like a temp or something. And so I would get that, because I do look young, and I really look young then. I was only like 22, 23 years old. So I probably looked like I was 12. But then here's the other thing. Hey, they'd be like on a job site with him. Hey, that girl that was in New York, or that girl that was at the business meeting with you? Yeah. Rochele? Yeah. Oh man, she's super hot. Why don't let's go out for drinks after we finish here, invite her. I'd like to get to know her a little better. And they'd be like, he would be like, you mean Rochele, the girl that was with me in the meeting? Oh yeah, man. He'd be like, that's my wife. And they'd be like, oh, what? Oh my gosh, I didn't, so that was the other thing. That's the kind of stuff I experienced. As far as, I was told by the guys when I started the company, you're a woman, you look like a little girl. We're not going to let you be successful in our industry. We're not but I'm the only telecom company in this new emerging industry. We don't care. We're going to do everything in our power so that you don't be successful, because we don't want no little girl playing in the boys' world. Well, I grew up playing in the boys' world. So, I played with boys all my life. So it was like, oh, really? Well, you watch this little girl, because this little girl is going to show you how little girls play with little boys in a good way, right? And so that kind of didn't sound too good.
I know what you meant.
Those are the kind of experiences I had. As far as color, it wasn't an issue. And I always say what's in the United States is, and I've been like this all my life, I've experienced it, whether they want to say they're making a quota or not, it's okay. Because for me, it's just an opportunity for them to get to know people of color, right? But I've always been the only Black girl, the Black, board of directors on a nonprofit, the Black girl for whatever it was. Even in school, it's like, because I'm fair skinned, it's like, oh, she's fair. We know what her parents look like or whatever. So we know but she's dark enough so we can make our quota for the government. And it's like, it shouldn't have to be like that. But in the reality of the world that people see with color, they see your color first. They don't see your personality, your character. They see your color first. And then based on how they are, if they want, they decide if they want to proceed forward and get to know you. And then once they do, it's, an amazing experience. But it's just the way we live. It's just the world. I'm not sure if it'll ever change, but I don't think that someone of color or no color should let anything stop them. Everything's available to us. And if somebody has a bias about color or no color, so to speak, that's their issue. Move on, because there's 1,000 other people that don't have a bias, and, we're more than happy to embrace you. So it's just the way it is.
Well, I'm glad that at least you haven't had such like a huge amount of negative sort of interactions due to either your gender or your color. I mean, it's, as I said, when I was younger, it was the same with like when I found out people were like homophobic and things. I found that out in secondary school, and I was just like, what? I was so confused, and my parents were also very loving and things, and they always said, if you were gay, that's fine. If you were this, it's fine. All these things, and they never had an issue with any of these. And I clearly was one of those the privilege thing of just like I had this privilege. I literally didn't even know that people got bullied or harassed or any of these other things for anything else. And now I'm getting older, it's more like it's so upsetting of just these things, there's so many other things that we could almost fight about. They're so much more important. I'd rather we didn't fight about anything, but things that people can't control. And in England,
Right.
we don't have racism. We do obviously have racism. That was, I almost started a wrong sentence then. It's not necessarily, I know in America, obviously you have a lot of issues with sort of police brutality and a lot of other sort of institutionalized racism and all kinds of other things, which are very heavy subjects that I'm not necessarily going to get into at the moment. But in England, we don't have it where it's like the same divide of sort of, you know, I know over there you guys have had issues with, you know, white supremacists and things like that. We actually have it more with like xenophobia, which is very similar but not quite the same. Like in Britain, the main issue with racism is not against people who are black, it's against people who are essentially Muslim, which I know that isn't a race. I know that's a religious ideology. But, you know, people from the Middle East or people from that, because they go, and it's not you're black, it's they go, you're not from round here. It's that sort of thing. It's, you know, we're an island. We're nice Britain. We're away from everyone else. We're secluded. We should keep Britain British and all that fucking rubbish that drives me mental, considering Britain's one of the most multicultural places there was, considering we got invaded by everyone every couple of hundred years, and our entire language is literally a culmination of French, German, Spanish and everything all melded together terribly. So people saying that is just so triggering. But aside from that, it's one of those things where it's just like, there's so many things in the world that make us different, and there's so many things that make people sort of a reason to ridicule, in a sense. I wouldn't ever want to necessarily ridicule people, but, you know, if people come out with stupid things or say stupid things, that's kind of a reason to maybe ridicule. But when it's just like, if you can't control something about yourself, like I do not have anything against individuals who are overweight or fat, okay? And I don't want fat shaming to happen.
Right.
But being overweight is a choice, essentially. Not in every case, obviously. I'm trying to make a really quick point, and I've ended up digging myself 100,000 holes because I'm treading on landmines everywhere I go. I'm doing a terrible job. But like, if someone's overweight and you bully them for it, I disagree with that completely. I don't think that's constructive in any way. But there is that line of, part of it is due to their lifestyle or this, that, and the other. There are obviously a lot of circumstances where things can't be helped or this, that, and the other, but excluding those. But when it's like gender or race, it's really like just, if you're born with it, if you are born with something like eye color, hair color, whatever, and you can't change that, then how can someone ridicule you for it? And it's taken me so long to try and work out why that is. And I think it's just tribalism, and it's just people want a reason to be like, now this is us over here and that's them over there, and we're for some reason better than those over there, and we need to find a reason for that.
Isn't that crazy? You know, in the big scheme of things, we all have to wake up, eat, poo, and die. We all do that.
Yep.
I don't care if you're black, brown, you know, white, yellow, whatever. Everybody does the same thing, right?
Yeah.
We all are birthed to die, basically. And there's just no so to dislike someone for their color, or, you know, they have blue eyes and you got brown eyes, or whatever, it's just so silly to me. You know, get to know that person first, then you can make a character judgment, right? You know, some people that you think are good people because of whatever are not good people. You know, every rich person is not a good person. Every wealthy person is not a happy person, right? You know, every poor person is not sad, and every poor person is not bad, you know.
Exactly.
And so it's just like, get to know the person before you judge them. Remove the color thing. And it's funny because it's so prevalent here in the United States. But when I travel abroad, you know, go to England, Spain, you know, all these different countries, it's never the color of my skin. I know that I'm not being judged for the color of my skin. It might be my religious beliefs or, you know, but it's not ever the color of my skin. And so when I come back to the US and you hear about all this stuff, and it's just senselessly because I don't like that person because they're black, or I don't like that person because they're brown or whatever. It's like, but you don't even know them. How can you judge somebody that you don't like them if you don't even know them? And so it's crazy. But I think, of course, you know, us Americans are a little different. Good, bad, and indifferent. You know, you have people like that all around the world. You can't explain it. You can't even make logical conversation with them as to why they're incorrect or whatever. But, you know, again, it just goes back into tapping into that positivity and trying to get that to expand as much as possible. And I think that's all we really can do.
100%. I completely agree. And, you've been incredibly generous with your time, and I really appreciate it. This has been a fantastic chat. And if you might, I just want to ask you one more question, which is slightly more on the personal side, but you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But I am just intrigued what your religious beliefs are. Just to preface it with me, I went to Catholic school. My dad was agnostic. Mum kind of believed what she kind of fancied believing at the time. When Dad got ill, she would pray to a God, but she didn't necessarily believe in the Christian version of God, etc. And then with me, I was, I grew up atheist. I was a very hard atheist when I was a teenager. That was the time when I was a bit of a dick to people, which I shouldn't have been. And it was just like, it was never anything like horrendous, but it was just like basically belittling people for believing something different, which is completely wrong. Everyone's got one piece of the puzzle, and we just all need to kind of put it all together, and we can figure out what it all vaguely means, if there is a meaning. But with me now, I kind of have this idea of where one thing you said really early on in this chat, which really stuck with me, which it clicked with me with something else I've said, which is, it doesn't matter what your beliefs are. Everyone knows for certain we have at least one life. We could have 100, we could have 1,000,000, we could go to heaven, hell, purgatory, reincarnation, any of those things. But the thing that matters the most is that right now, all of us alive at the moment know we have at least one life, and we should make that one as best as we can before worrying about all the other ones, and things like that. So I'd like to ask you, you don't necessarily have to get onto the details of why. I know obviously some of the issues with the Catholic Church you had, but I wondered what your sort of ideas are now, and maybe what you think happens after death, or anything that you'd like to tell me. I don't want to delve too deep, because some people hold their
it's fine.
religious ideologies.
I believe in God. I was a Catholic. I believe in God, and I'm very spiritual. I don't believe in any religion, period. I think, I don't even know how to say this. I think religion has been used as a tool for good and bad. And it is used as a way to control people, and used as a way to basically brainwash people. And I know I'm saying some stuff here, but for me, I believe in God, and I have a relationship with God, and my soul, and the angels and all of that. I do have that. Going on for me. And what I believe and what I practice may not be for everyone, but I don't talk negatively about any other person's belief, because that's not what I'm here for. If they choose to believe in Catholicism or Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or whatever the case may be, as long as they're a good person and they're doing good things in the world and being good to themselves and to those that they love and care about and those that they don't even know, that's fine with me. I don't care, just be a good person. So I think that's kind of how I am. I could go really deep, but we have to do another show for that. But just with my experiences and things, I just know what works for me. And again, I don't try to inflict upon anybody what my beliefs are. So I don't want people to inflict upon me what their beliefs are. And if you don't do that, we can get along great. Because the moment you start doing that, then I'm going to start bringing up stuff to contradict what you say based on factual information that is available to everyone. And so it's just like, let's just stay friendly and just, let's do the not talks. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about religion, because here in the United States, it could get quite ugly. I don't think anybody has the doctrine or jurisdiction over anybody's life to say, you can't have a baby, but I can have Viagra to make babies. You know what I mean? Or you know what I mean? Or, you should only marry this type of person, but I can marry any type of, I don't think anybody should have that type of jurisdiction. Or,
100%.
Give me all your money. I know you're barely making it, but give me as much money as you possibly can give, so that I can live a phenomenal, fantastic life off the money that I get from the church, but you're struggling to make ends meet to buy your kids milk and cereal. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. And so, again, not squashing anybody's beliefs. It's just what works for me in my life. Yeah. And I just know I just have a relationship with God, and that's all that matters for me right now.
Exactly, and that's beautiful. I mean, with that'll be pretty much how we end on it. I'll just add a little note to that end of that. Is with me, as I said, I used to be a very strong hardline atheist, and it was not very good. It made me seem like a dick to everyone, and it made me feel not great either. And now my sort of views are generally, real briefly, everything's made out of energy. I just generally believe the whole universe is this big, alive thing, this universal consciousness, and we're all connected. But the trees are connected, and the fungus and the animals and us, because we're all alive, and that's basically what connects us all. When we die, our consciousness, because our consciousness is probably made out of energy and things, because energy is what fuels us, it becomes one with the universe in one way or another. Right. Be it could be transcending and becoming into another planes of existence, like, dimensions that we can't fathom in our human form. We can't even see the whole light spectrum. We can't hear every sound. Dog whistles, for example, is something we can't hear, but it still exists. Countless things of all these things, And I view religion now very much sort of like music taste, in a sense. You can discuss it and you can talk about it and you can say, oh, this is what I like. You may want to try it, you may like it, but if you don't want to try that, that's fine. That's your jam. And if everyone's just kind of like that, it'd be fine. It's as long as you're not hurting people in the name of the Beatles, or you're not, trying to tell people they can't listen to Taylor Swift. As long as you're not doing any of those things, you're just saying, okay, well, if you listen to that, that's okay. I personally listen to this, but you can listen to what you want. That's what we should be with everything. Just let people do what people want, you know?
I agree. As long as they're not hurting anybody, it's their business.
That's perfect. Well, before we end then, how can people get a hold of you? I mean, you've got so many websites, books and everything. So just, here you go. Say everything that you want to say of self-promotion.
Well, you can definitely find me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Rochele Lawson or Rochele Marie Lawson. It's ROCH. You'll find it spelled ROCHELE or ROCHEL. Or ROCHELE with Marie, MARIE. You'll find me. You'll find.
I'll put
when
links
you
and
put
things.
me in there, you'll see this cute girl, the long, pretty hair, and cute little freckles on her face, and you won't miss me. But if you want to, tap in and connect with me deeper, you can always go to my website, which is blissful living, the number 4 and the letter U.com. Go there. I have free gifts. You can pick up a free gift. You can connect with me. You can schedule a time to chit-chat and get to know me, talk. Also, you can listen to the podcast, which is also Blissful Living. It's on iHeart Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Web Talk, you name it, it's out there. But the podcast is Blissful Living. And I speak a lot. I'm going to be speaking in Vancouver, in Edmonton, Canada. I tried to get the engagement for the UK, but I think they're filled. I was going to do Manchester and Wales, and but I think they got filled up before I could apply, so to speak. But there's, many, many ways, but definitely Blissful Living, the number 4u.com is the website, or, social media. You can check out my books. If you go to Barnes and Nobles or Amazon, just put in my name, Rochele Lawson, and it'll come up. You can YouTube me. I'm everywhere. So there's not an excuse. If you want to reach out and touch the Queen of Feeling Fabulous and have her bestow positive energy upon you so that you can live the life of your dreams, there's no way that you should not be able to find me. I'm everywhere.
And that's absolutely perfect. And I'll be sure to include many links in the description of your website and your podcast and all that sort of things. And I just want to really thank you for being such a fantastic guest on the show and for spreading much needed positivity to more people. And I'm sure you've touched many people's lives and you'll touch many more over the coming years.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been so cool to chat with a like-minded individual. And you're so cute. You're so young. I have a 25-year-old child. So technically, I could be your mother here in the United States. If you ever come to the U.S., please let me know and we can go have tea. I don't even know. Do you drink tea? Do all British people drink tea?
Most British people do. I'm actually more of a coffee drinker than a tea drinker, but I have been known to drink tea. But if you come over here, if you come over to the UK, you've got to tell me as well.
And you can have a coffee and I can have a tea.
Exactly.
How about
that sounds perfect. And you come over to the UK as well and you can have some UK tea. There you go. A lot of my friends and things.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
That sounds great. We'll definitely plan that then. No worries at all. Well, thanks again, Rochele.
Thank you.
And that's the end of part 2. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed that chat, be sure to check out Rochele Lawson. I've included a link to her website, Blissful Living for You, in the show notes. So, check that out if what she's speaking about kind of hit home with you. And also in the description is the link to the episode of Comics in Motion. I believe it's number 75, where I guest on there and I reviewed Dread, the 2012 version with Carl Urban, with the guys at Comics in Motion, and had a fantastic time doing it. So, be sure to check those guys out if you haven't already. I will also say that today is actually Father's Day. I believe it's the same in the UK and the US. Sorry if there's anyone else who lives away. I can't list every place that has a Father's Day on different days potentially. Any listeners to the podcast will know, and I believe I mentioned it in this podcast, I think. Essentially, my dad passed away many years ago. This was 6 years ago now. So when I was like 19. And obviously, so Father's Day, it doesn't do a huge thing for me, like doesn't make me depressed or anything. I normally just do other stuff. Like today I haven't really been doing anything related to that. Me and Megan have just kind of been pottering around doing her own thing. But essentially what I did with my brother this time last year was we released an episode about my dad. We just spoke about sort of the ups and downs in a lot of ways. I mean, he died of esophageal cancer, and my brother Rob is 17 years older than me and has a different mum to me. So we both had slightly different upbringings from dad. But basically we just speak about sort of how he was when he was alive, what he became like when he was ill, how he told us, how it felt, what happened after he passed, these sorts of things. So it's not just a podcast that's all just sort of down and depressing and saying about how, horrendous life is without him or anything like that. We do honestly talk about him. We speak about him as an individual, how flawed he was, but also how brilliant he was. We speak about some of the things he did wrong and some of the things he could have done better. And it's just kind of an honest look in how two brothers view the death of their father. That's all I kind of wanted to go by. I just hope that if anyone is going through anything where any of their family member is terminally ill, or if they've had anyone who's passed away who's ill, or anything like that, this podcast may actually help you out a bit. Now, just to be clear, this was episode 24 of the podcast, so it was a little while back, and it is longer than an hour, but it is a special one. I just think it really means a lot to me, because obviously it was a very nice thing to be able to speak with my brother for around an hour and a half just about dad without any interruptions or anyone else involved in things. So it was very therapeutic for myself and for Rob. But, I really implore anyone to go listen to it. If you are interested in that sort of thing, or if you're interested in my life and probably why I am the way I am in some ways. So that's a bit of that. Also, coming up in the coming weeks, I did have Comics in Motion, the guys that I mentioned slightly earlier in this outro. I guested on their show. I did have them on the podcast earlier in the week, so I think theirs is going to be the next podcast that I release. I did also speak with a gentleman called Shaudo, who is an independent London rapper who I saw support Tech9 in Bristol a few months back. He's really into manga. He's actually got his own manga. He was on Ninja Warrior UK. He's done loads of crazy, interesting things. He's a really interesting guy, incredibly intelligent, and just really fun to chat to. We spoke about Dragon Ball Z for quite a while as well, which is good. That podcast will probably be out a bit later because he's got a single coming out, I believe, in August time, so I'm going to try and release it around that time if I can, but if guests pull out or anything like that and I don't have a podcast to release, then I will release his podcast, and I'm sure he'll be happy with that too. So the current two that maybe next week is the Comics in Motion podcast or Shaudo. I'm leaning on the Comics in Motion podcast because I don't have any other chats lined up for this week. I will also say that anyone listening, check out my Instagram page as well as my Twitter and my Facebook. It's all genuine Chit-Chat. I believe Instagram is genuine_Chit-Chat and Twitter is just genuine Chit-Chat because I'm a moron. No other way to describe it. I'm an idiot when I made both of those tags, both of those profiles rather. But on Instagram, basically this weekend just gone, I was an extra in a zombie movie called Day 66, and there's quite a few cool pictures on there of there. It's a lot of fun to do. Hopefully I'm going to have the director on a bit later in the year. He's an incredibly busy guy right now, still finishing off the film and things. So I think once he's got sort of the finished product and he knows what he wants to do with it, then I'll have him on the show. We'll talk about it and things like that, because he's a really interesting guy. He's called Russ, and I can't wait to speak with him. So that's probably what's coming up. I've been rambling on now for quite a while in the outro, as I normally do. So I'm going to leave you guys to go. Any reviews on iTunes, any sharing in social media, and any spreading of word of mouth with anyone you know is all really appreciated. I just appreciate each and every one of you listening essentially, if you're hearing this to the end, and I love that. So, thanks as always for listening, guys. I truly appreciate it, and I'll talk to all of you next week, and have a happy Father's Day if you're listening to this on Sunday.